When father poured the charm water into mother's mouth, I stopped him. Grandmother beside him mumbled, "Mother is possessed. We need the mountain god's charm water to suppress it." I knew that yellow-black bowl of liquid wasn't charm water at all, but a poisonous concoction from rotten mountain weeds. In my previous life, they had poured that same thing into my mouth, making me so gravely ill that they buried me alive. This time, I stayed silent, waiting for father to turn his back. I pulled out another packet I had stolen and secretly sprinkled its contents into the water jar he kept on the table. "Father, if someone absolutely has to die, it might as well be you." That packet contained jimsonweed seed powder that I had been collecting for a long time. Jimsonweed seeds are dark purple, looking like an edible wild fruit. The hungry children in the village often picked and ate them, but they didn't know that eating too much would cause dizziness, stomach aches, and even diarrhea. In my previous life, I was so hungry that I ate too much at once, writhing in pain on my bed. Father, angered by my noise, kicked me under the bed, scolding me as a worthless child who would never grow up. In this life, that poison had become my weapon. Father returned from working in the fields, his throat parched, and gulped down a ladle of water. I crouched by the doorstep, watching his Adam's apple move, silently counting in my heart. As expected, in the middle of the night, father began to scream, clutching his belly, his cries as loud as a pig being slaughtered. He rushed out to the latrine in the yard, then stumbled back in. Grandmother was woken, lit the oil lamp to see, and the courtyard was immediately filled with curses and a terrible stench. "Wretched evil, which vengeful spirit clings to our family now?" Grandmother's voice was shrill and full of terror. Mother was also woken. In the darkness, her body tensed. It wasn't anxiety, but the primal vigilance of a caged animal reacting to a change in its environment. For Mother, any abnormality from her abuser could signal an even more horrific disaster. I slowly crawled to Mother's bedside. In the darkness, I felt her feverish heat and suppressed trembling. I took her hand. She flinched, then relaxed when she realized it was me. I looked at Mother and nodded firmly. "Mother, don't be afraid. This time I will take you home." The two pillars of this family, one poisoned by charm water, the other struck down by jimsonweed seeds. This had given me a precious opportunity. I feigned going to get Mother water, slipped into the kitchen, and stole a small box of matches from the very bottom of a wooden cabinet. Then, taking advantage of Grandmother's frantic care for father, too busy to mind me, I secretly left the house. This small village had only one dirt road leading out. At the edge of the village was a general store, the only one around. I remembered that in my previous life, a strange man from another place bought me a piece of candy right here. It was the only sweetness in my short life. Now, the wooden door of the general store was ajar. The owner was slumped over the counter, dozing. I slipped inside silently, like a small cat. The shelves were dusty, and there weren't many goods. I saw a moss-green exercise book, exactly like the one I had longed for in my dreams in my previous life. Beside it lay a short pencil. I had to stretch with all my might to reach them. Tucking the book and pencil close, I didn't leave immediately but stood on tiptoe, searching the shelves. Very quickly, I found my target, a packet of red wax crayons. In my previous life, when I was buried alive, the police eventually came. But the villagers conspired, all claiming I had died of an illness. Without evidence, the police had to let it go. This time, I would give them undeniable proof. I hid the stolen items in a hole under the bed. It was a shared space between me and the rats. For the next 2 days, father was too exhausted from vomiting and diarrhea to get out of bed. Grandmother cursed and prepared herbal medicine. The whole house was filled with a bitter, acrid smell all day. Mother's high fever hadn't subsided. She was delirious, constantly calling out a name. Achet. I knew it was Mother's fiancé's name. Mother once told me that when she was kidnapped, she was about to get married. Uncle Achet must still be frantically searching for her. This further strengthened my resolve to get the message out. In the quiet of the late night, I tiptoed to get the exercise book from under the bed. I couldn't light an oil lamp. It would be discovered. Relying on the faint moonlight streaming through the window, I spread the book on the floor. I couldn't read or write. No one taught me in my previous life, and I had no chance to learn in this one, but I could draw. I used that tiny pencil to draw a map of our village on the paper. Crooked lines represented each small road in the village. Vague square shapes represented each household. After drawing these, I paused, took a deep breath, and then pulled out the packet of red wax crayons. I twisted open the crayon's cap and used the blood red color to draw a tiny crying dot in the square representing our house. Then the crayon moved to the neighboring Wang family's house. I clearly remembered that the Wang family also had a botwife who always tried to escape. After being caught, her legs were broken, and she was locked in the wine cellar. I had secretly peeked at her through the cellar's ventilation hole. She lay on a pile of straw like a muddy heap. I drew a staircase leading underground next to the Wang family square. At the bottom of the stairs was a woman, chained and crying. Next was Uncle Lee's house. Uncle Lee's wife was even more miserable because she couldn't bear a son. She was treated like an animal, swallowed up in a pigsty, eating and sleeping with pigs every day. I drew a pigsty next to Uncle Lee's square. Inside were a woman and a pig lying next to each other. Old man Que's house was at the end of the village, old woman Cam's house at the beginning. I relied on the memories of my previous life to draw each house, one by one. Every time I drew a stroke, those desperate cries and soulless eyes reappeared vividly in my mind. This village was rotten to its roots. My hands trembled not from cold but from rage and fear. The last stroke was laid down, and the entire page was covered in visually striking red symbols. This was a cry for help, drawn in blood, from a mute girl. After finishing the map, I turned to a new page and began another drawing. I drew a woman wearing a blue dress. That was the outfit Mother wore when she was kidnapped. I had seen it in a photograph. Beside her was a man in a suit. I guessed that was Uncle Ah-Chet. I tried to draw them beautifully, happily. At the bottom of the picture, I used the pencil, stroke by stroke, imitating the letters I had seen on cigarette packs, painstakingly writing out the 3 characters. Phuong Tin Ha, that was Mother's name. Having finished everything, I carefully hid the notebook, waiting for an opportunity to arise. This village was like an iron barrel, impenetrable by needles, impervious to water. Yet, even an iron barrel needed basic transactions with the outside world for salt, cloth, and necessities. Old Liu, the peddler, was the only outsider allowed in and out of that iron barrel. He would arrive punctually on the 15th of every month, bringing cheap industrial goods from outside to exchange for the forest products gathered by the villagers. The villagers, especially the key figures led by the village chief, allowed him to exist because he had been coming for over a decade, was timid, greedy for money, and seemed utterly unthreatening. Each time he came, he was only permitted to conduct business at the thrashing floor under the ancient pagoda tree at the village entrance, under the watchful eyes of the village chief and a few strong young men, absolutely forbidden to step even half a pace into the village. The villagers thought he was a fool they could easily manipulate, but they didn't know he was my only hope. In my previous life, when I was on the verge of death, it was he who secretly slipped me a piece of malt candy when no one was looking. That small act of kindness became the motivation for me to risk everything when I was reborn. Father's health gradually improved. Though still weak, he could talk. He lay gasping on the sickbed, his fierce gaze becoming increasingly clear. That broomstick, nothing good has happened since she came home. Keeping her is just a disaster. He spat, telling grandmother, "Mother, prepare, find a good hour, and bury that little girl to rid our family of bad luck." Grandmother's cloudy eyes lit up, and she nodded repeatedly. "Yes, we must do that. Keeping her is just a waste of food." I hid behind the door, listening to their conversation, my small body trembling uncontrollably with rage. Rid of bad luck. Use a life to get rid of your filthy bad luck? I bit my lip tightly until I tasted blood, forcing myself to calm down. I mustn't act rashly. I couldn't let them detect anything unusual. The burial hour was set for the next day, the 15th. They had even started choosing a spot to dig the hole on the mountain. There wasn't much time left. On the night of the 14th, I was almost sleepless. I clutched that exercise book filled with crimes to my chest. It was thin but so heavy it made it hard for me to breathe. The next morning, I heard the familiar jingling sound. Clang, 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 the peddler had arrived. My heart pounded wildly, my palms slick with cold sweat. Success or failure. It all hinged on this moment. I hid the notebook on my person, secretly left the house as usual, pretending to play in the mud at the village entrance. Old Liu, the peddler's donkey cart, was indeed parked under the large pagoda tree. The village chief and a few men stared at him like hawks, inspecting the forest products to be exchanged. The villagers crowded around, whispering as they chose the salt and matches they needed. This was the only and best opportunity. I lowered my head, using the corner of my eye to lock onto a bulging burlap sack placed on the cart's frame. Inside that sack were old Liu's clothes and dried goods. I approached the donkey cart slowly, like a frightened little rabbit. My heart hammered against my ribs, the sounds of the world seemed to disappear, leaving only my own ragged breathing. Closer, closer still. I extended my trembling hand, lifted a small corner of the burlap sack, and swiftly tucked the notebook from my chest inside. Having done all this, I immediately fled, hiding behind a pile of dry firewood, watching intensely. Please, heaven, don't let anyone discover it. The peddler and the village chief had agreed on the price and began loading the goods onto the cart. Old Liu casually patted the burlap sack, shifting it a little further in. My heart leaped into my throat. Fortunately, he didn't open it. After loading the goods, the peddler shouted loudly, urging the donkey cart to prepare to leave. Just then, something unusual happened. The village chief's son, a boy of about 7 or 8, suddenly pointed at me and yelled, "Father, I saw that mute girl put something into the peddler's bag." In that instant, everyone's gaze shot towards me like sharp swords, including the village chief's sinister eyes. The blood in my veins seemed to freeze. The peddler also stopped his cart, the money-grubbing smile on his face frozen, replaced by fear and bewilderment, afraid of being implicated. He turned his head to look at his burlap sack. The village chief frowned and stepped forward, roughly grabbing my collar. His strength was terrifying, my feet left the ground. "You, mute girl, what did you put in his bag?" I shook my head desperately, only able to emit helpless clicking sounds, tears streaming down my face. "This is my only weapon." The boy ran over, triumphantly pointing at the burlap sack. "Father, it's in that bag. I saw it with my own eyes." "It's over," my mind went blank. The village chief's hand reached for the burlap sack. If he opened it, everything would end. Not only would I fail to save Mother, but the evidence I drew would bring disaster and ruin to all the women in the village. And I certainly wouldn't survive either. No, absolutely not. I couldn't let him open it. I gathered all my strength, suddenly opened my mouth, and bit hard into the village chief's wrist that was gripping me. "Ouch!" The village chief screamed in pain, throwing me to the ground. My head hit a rock hard, and my vision blurred, but I didn't care about the pain. I had to create a bigger commotion to attract everyone's attention. I sprang up from the ground like a crazed small animal, charging towards my father's nearest firewood shed. In my hand, I still clutched the box of matches I had stolen from the kitchen. "Stop her! This crazy girl!" The village chief's furious roar echoed behind me, but I was faster than them. Constant hunger had made my body thin, but it also made my movements agile. I ran to the firewood shed door, pulled the latch with all my might, and just as the people behind me were about to catch me, I plunged inside. The shed was full of dry firewood and straw. The air was thick with the smell of burning wood. Without hesitation, I struck the match in my hand. The tiny flame flickered in my trembling hand, like a desperate soul-guiding lamp. I brought it close to the pile of dry grass in the corner. The moment the flame touched the dry grass, there was a whoosh, and the fire immediately blazed up, greedily devouring everything around it. The dense smoke made me cough violently, and the hot air seared my skin. The shed door outside was kicked open, and Father's face, contorted with anger, appeared at the entrance. He saw the soaring flames, first stunned, but immediately understood something, his eyes quickly turning bloodshot. "You wretched omen, you good-for-nothing, I'll beat you to death." He rushed in, grabbed my hair, dragged me out of the fire, and threw me forcefully into the middle of the courtyard. The entire village gathered around. They looked at the raging fire in the shed, then at me, their eyes filled with horror and hatred. No one cared about the peddler's burlap sack anymore. In the chaos, I saw the peddler look at me deeply, his eyes complex. Then without hesitation, he cracked his whip fiercely, urging the donkey cart to race out of the village entrance without looking back. He had carried away the mute girl's letter. In my heart, a great stone finally dropped. Father's punches and slaps rained down on me. I curled up on the ground, clutching my head. I didn't cry or scream because I knew that as I sank into darkness, salvation was on its way. Grandmother rushed over, pointing at me, screaming in a shrill voice, "She's an evil spirit here to harm our whole family. Drown her in the pond quickly, or she will bring misfortune upon our entire village. Drown her in the pond, drown her in the pond." The villagers joined in the shouting, their faces filled with fear and ignorance. Father picked me up like a chick and strode towards the village pond at the entrance. I took one last look at my home. "Mother, I'm sorry. Nom Nom can't be with you anymore. You must live well, wait for Uncle Ah Chet to come and get you." The icy pond water immediately engulfed my mouth and nose. I gave up struggling, allowing my body to sink. In the last moments of consciousness, I seemed to hear the panicked sounds of the villagers. Outside the village, it seemed many vehicles were approaching. My body felt weightless, light as a feather. I floated up from the cold pond surface, through the water, seeing the panicked crowd on the shore. My father stood by the pond, his face devoid of remorse, only the cruelty of someone who had just solved a problem. Grandmother mumbled incessantly, as if chasing away some invisible evil spirit. "I'm dead." This realization came calmly. It was not painful but a liberation. My soul, like a wisp of blue smoke, hovered in the center of the village. I could see the burning shed, each terrified and soulless face, and also the donkey cart gradually moving away. I floated after the donkey cart, flying over the winding mountain roads. Old Liu, the peddler, drove very fast, dust from the donkey's hooves rising as if bidding me farewell. He kept going until the village was out of sight, then stopped in a mountain ravine. He leaned against a large tree, lit a cigarette, but his hands trembled, scattering tobacco everywhere. Then he took a deep puff. It seemed he was using the smell of nicotine to suppress the fear in his heart. Old Liu still seemed to vividly remember the horrifying scene. He hesitated and struggled. Finally, as if making a decision, he took the burlap sack off the cart. His hand fumbled inside, eventually pulling out the still-warm exercise book, opening it with a look of doubt. The first page was the crookedly drawn map of the village, marked with red symbols. When he saw the red drawings representing the cellar, the pigsty, chains, and crying women, the hand holding the notebook began to tremble violently. He turned to the second page. On it was a woman in a blue dress and a man in a suit. Below were 3 characters, written with all effort, Fuang Tinha. Oh my God, what a tragedy. Old Liu let out a choked, sorrowful growl of indignation. He clutched the notebook tightly to his chest, then fiercely whipped the donkey's rear. The donkey cart sped madly towards the town beyond the mountains. I flew behind him. I knew the cry for help was about to be delivered. Now I had to return to Mother and wait for them to arrive. When I flew back to the village, the fire in the firewood shed had been extinguished, leaving only a pile of charred debris. The villagers gathered in groups discussing what had just happened. They called me an evil spirit, said my death was deserved. Drowning me in the pond was to rid the village of a great misfortune. I flew home. Father was sitting alone at the table, drinking. Grandmother stood beside him, listing my crimes, saying the family should have gotten rid of me long ago. Mother lay on the bed, seemingly unaware of what was happening outside. She was still in a high fever, muttering unconsciously. I floated to Mother, wanting to hold her hand as before, but my fingertips passed right through. I couldn't touch Mother anymore. A tremendous sadness engulfed me, my soul screaming, but I couldn't shed a single tear. Mother, just try to hold on a little longer, just wait a little while more. Time passed incredibly slowly. As dusk fell, an unusual sound echoed from afar. At first it was faint like the wind, but very quickly, the sound became clearer and clearer, transforming into an urgent and sharp siren. Approaching from a distance, it tore through the stillness of the mountain village evening. Father's drinking stopped, and grandmother's curses caught in her throat. The dogs in the village began barking frantically. Immediately after, several blinding car lights ripped through the darkness, illuminating the road into the village. Several police cars, kicking up dust, stopped in the middle of the village, thrashing floor with an undeniable presence. The leader was a middle-aged man with a square face, his eyes sharp as a hawk. The village chief rushed over, a fawning smile on his face. "Oh, Chief Wang, what brings you here?" Chief Wang's gaze swept past him, coldly surveying the village. "Less chatter. We received a report that your village is suspected of being involved in a large-scale human trafficking case. Everyone stay put, do not move." This statement was like a thunderbolt striking all the villagers. The smile on the village chief's face froze, immediately turning into panic. "Chief Wang, is there some misunderstanding? How could our mountain corner be involved in human trafficking?" Chief Wang ignored him and pulled a transparent evidence bag from his pocket. Inside the bag was my exercise book. He opened the book, held up the map covered in red crimes for everyone to see. Chief Wang's voice was icy. "We will confront you all, one by one, with everything drawn here." The villagers stared at the map, and the blood drained from their faces. The panic in their eyes turned into fear and despair. According to the map, Team 1 to Wang Fugui's house, Team 2 to Li Dexuan's house, Team 3 will follow me to Zhang Deshan's house. Chief Wang gave the order, and the police immediately split up, their movements decisive and swift. I flew after Chief Wang and his team, hovering into our home. My father heard Chief Wang's shout, so scared that he dropped the bowl of liquor in his hand to the ground. He stumbled to his feet, wanting to close the door, but it was too late. "Police!" Don't move." Several police officers rushed in, immediately pinning father and grandmother to the ground. "What are you doing? By what right are you arresting people? What law have we broken?" Grandmother was still screaming and cursing shrilly. Father was so terrified his face was pale, unable to utter a word. Chief Wang ignored their shouts, his sharp eyes sweeping through the house, finally stopping at the old bed in the inner room. He strode over quickly. Mother lay there, eyes closed, face flushed with high fever, her breath so faint it was almost imperceptible. "Call the doctor to come here immediately." Chief Wang instantly turned and shouted. A female doctor with a medical kit rushed in, quickly examining Mother. "High fever, severe dehydration, and signs of poisoning. She needs to be taken to the hospital immediately." The female doctor's voice was extremely urgent. Two police officers immediately stepped forward, carefully lifting Mother onto a stretcher. As she was carried out of the dark room that had imprisoned her for 6 years, exposed to the outside air, Mother's long eyelashes trembled slightly, then she slowly opened her eyes. What she saw was a starry sky and unfamiliar but caring faces. Mother's cloudy eyes showed a flicker of bewilderment, then as if she understood something, 2 streams of clear tears silently rolled down from the corners of her eyes. I floated beside Mother's stretcher, smiling. "Mother, you are free." At the same time, in other corners of the village, the cries of women and the angry roars of men also continuously resounded. I saw Aunt Wang's cellar forced open, a woman with deformed legs being carried out. She clung tightly to a police officer's leg, crying heartbrokenly. I saw in Uncle Lee's pigsty, a filthy, emaciated woman found, her eyes vacant, devoid of any vitality. Every red dot corresponded to a destroyed life. The blood-drawn letter was turning into sharp swords, piercing through the darkest, blindest spot of this village. The rescue operation lasted all night. When morning broke, on the village thrashing floor, more than 10 liberated women stood there. Some were dazed, some burst into tears, and some glared with vengeful eyes at the men being handcuffed by the police. Father and grandmother were among them. Mother was prioritized to be put in an ambulance because her condition was the most serious. I flew closely alongside the ambulance, watching the vehicle leave this earthly hell, heading towards a place with light. At the town hospital, Mother was immediately taken to the emergency room. I couldn't enter, only waited anxiously outside. I saw old Liu, the peddler, describing the situation to Chief Wang. "That girl," she tucked the notebook into my coarse cloth bag so it wouldn't be discovered. She set fire to the firewood shed herself, and in the end, her own father threw her into the pond. Old Liu said, a man over 40, his eyes red-rimmed. Chief Wang listened in silence, his fists clenched tightly. He patted old Liu's shoulder, saying in a deep voice, "You did well. You saved over 10 people. We will send people to retrieve the child's body and bring justice for her." I didn't know what justice was. I only knew Mother was saved. Not long after, the emergency room light went off. The doctor came out, removing his mask. "Patient is out of danger, but her body is still very weak and needs good rest." Everyone sighed with relief. Mother was transferred to a regular ward. She lay on the spotless white hospital bed, receiving an IV drip. Although still very thin, her breathing was much more stable. In the evening, the ward door was pushed open. A man in a windbreaker with a handsome but extremely anxious face rushed in. His gaze swept around the room, and when he saw Mother on the bed, his whole body stiffened. "Tin Ha," he called out tremblingly, taking step after step towards her. Mother seemed to hear his voice, slowly opening her eyes. When she clearly saw the face of the newcomer, Mother's previously dim eyes suddenly glowed with an incredible radiance. "Ah, Chet!" The man could no longer hold back. He rushed to the bedside, tightly clasped Mother's hand, tears streaming down his face. "It's me, Tin Ha, it's me. I finally found you. I'm sorry I came too late." He was indeed Uncle Achet. He had truly been searching for Mother all this time. Seeing them embrace and sob, my heart felt both bitter and comforted. "Mother, your life can start anew." Not long after, Mother's mood gradually calmed. She wiped away her tears, looking around the unfamiliar hospital room, her eyes carrying a hint of fear and bewilderment. Suddenly, as if remembering something most important, Mother abruptly clutched the hand of a female police officer nearby, asking with all her strength, urgently, "Where is my daughter? Where is my daughter?" Mother's question was like a large stone thrown into a calm lake, making the atmosphere in the room immediately heavy. A flicker of awkwardness and sadness appeared on the female police officer's face. She opened her mouth, but didn't know how to answer someone who had just escaped danger. Uncle Achet was also stunned. Clearly, he didn't yet know of my existence. "Daughter?" he asked Tin Ha doubtfully. Mother ignored him, her eyes fixed on the female police officer, her dry, cracked lips trembling as she repeated the question. Where is my daughter? She's a mute child, only 6 years old, small and thin. Where is she? Has she been rescued? Mother's voice was full of hope. It was the desperate plea of a drowning person trying to grasp at the last straw. Chief Wang sighed, stepping in from outside the door. He motioned for the female police officer to leave, then pulled a chair and sat down by the bedside. Comrade Fuang Tin Ha, please calm down. His voice tried to be as gentle as possible. Regarding your daughter, we need you to provide some information. Mother became agitated. She's just a child. She can't speak, but she understands a lot. Have you found her yet? Where is she? Chief Wang was silent for a moment, then took my exercise book from his pocket, flipping to the page where Mother and Uncle Achet were drawn. Were these letters written by your daughter? Mother saw the familiar, crooked handwriting and tears immediately welled up. She choked out, It's my daughter's. I taught her to write my name. She's very smart, learns very quickly. She's been saved, right? Police officer, I beg you, please tell me, where is my daughter? Chief Wang's eyes were filled with respect and sorrow. He said in a low voice, Comrade Fuang Tin Ha, you have an incredibly brave, incredibly extraordinary daughter. It was she who used this drawing book to alert the police, saving you and also saving all the kidnapped women in the village. He briefly recounted my actions at the village entrance. From how I slipped the notebook into the peddler's bag to how I set fire to the firewood shed to distract the villagers. With each sentence he spoke, Mother's face grew paler. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably. When Chief Wang spoke of how, in the end, I was deemed a calamity by that man and thrown into the pond at the village entrance, Mother's eyes widened, all the light in her pupils extinguished in an instant. A piercing scream, like that of a wounded animal, erupted from Mother's throat. She sprang from the bed, ripped out the IV drip in her hand, frantically trying to get off the bed. My nom, Tin Ha, calm down, you're still injured. Let me go. I have to find my daughter. My nom is still in the water, she's so afraid of the cold and she's afraid of the dark too. Mother struggled wildly, her cries heartbreaking, filled with despair and boundless regret. It's my fault for being useless, my fault for not protecting her, all my fault. Finally, Mother couldn't break free, her whole body went limp, collapsing into Uncle Achet's arms, crying until she almost fainted. I hovered in the middle of the ward, watching everything, my soul trembling violently. A pain colder than being submerged in icy water enveloped me. Mother, don't cry. Nom isn't afraid of the cold, nor is she afraid of the dark. Nom is very happy that Mother is saved. I wanted to tell Mother, but I couldn't make any sound. I reached out to wipe Mother's tears, but my hand passed through her body again and again. The boundary between life and death separated us. I had saved everyone, but I had lost Mother forever. Mother fell ill. Her physical wounds gradually healed, but the immense emotional shock caused her to collapse. Mother no longer spoke, nor did she cry. Day after day, she just lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling like a soulless statue. Uncle Achet never left her side, feeding her, wiping her face, gently whispering stories to her, trying to awaken her consciousness. But Mother had no reaction. The police had sent a diving team to search that pond for 3 days and 3 nights, but found nothing. The pond was very deep, its bottom filled with mud and weeds. A 6-year-old child's body, once submerged, was like a drop of water dissolving into the ocean. Not finding it was good too. I didn't want Mother to see my body swollen and disfigured from being soaked in water. I preferred that in Mother's heart, I would forever be the thin, small nom with big, round eyes. During this time, the case made significant progress. Using my mute child's letter as core evidence, the police conducted a thorough investigation of the entire village. A criminal network of human trafficking, deeply rooted in the mountains for decades, linked by blood and clan, was completely dismantled. All the men involved in buying, imprisoning, and torturing women were arrested according to the law. Those who colluded and aided the evil, such as my grandmother, also received appropriate punishment. This news became a shocking event. Countless reporters flocked to this remote town, wanting to interview the rescued women, wanting to learn about the story of the young hero who sacrificed her life to alert the police. Chief Wang blocked them all. He said those women didn't need exposure but rather healing in silence. As for me, he chose the simplest way to protect my final dignity. In the official announcement, my name was called Little Hero. Uncle Achet read the news from the newspaper to Mother every day. He told Mother that all the wicked people had been arrested and they would face the strictest punishment under the law. And most of the kidnapped women, like Mother, had found their families and were on their way home. Uncle Achet held Mother's hand, his voice choked. Tinha, do you see? It was Nam Nam, our daughter, who brought about all of this. She is a hero. You should be proud of her. Hearing the name Nam, Mother's eyelashes trembled slightly, and a tear rolled down from the corner of her eye onto the pristine white pillow, forming a small damp streak. Mother's condition improved slightly after half a month. She began to eat a little and walk around the ward with Uncle Achet's support. But Mother still didn't speak. One day, a woman came to visit. She looked about 40, dressed simply, carrying a fruit basket, her face a little flustered and uneasy. "Excuse me, is this Ms. Fuang Tinha?" she asked carefully. Uncle Achet nodded. The woman entered, placed the fruit basket on the table, and then bowed deeply to Mother, who was sitting on the bed. Her voice was choked with emotion. Thank you, Nam Nam." I recognized her. She was the wife from the Wang family, the one I had drawn in the cellar. Her leg hadn't fully recovered, she walked with a limp, but there was light in her eyes. She wiped away tears and said, "If it weren't for your daughter, I might have rotted and died in that cellar my whole life. My family has come to pick me up, I'm leaving tomorrow. Before I go, I absolutely had to come and thank you in person." She took a small item wrapped in a handkerchief from her pocket and offered it. "I have nothing to repay you with. This is a peace talisman I prayed for. I hope it can protect you, and I also wish that Nam Nam, in heaven, will be blessed." Mother stared blankly at her, showing no reaction. Uncle Achet accepted the peace talisman, repeatedly expressing his thanks. After the woman left, Uncle Achet placed the small red peace talisman in Mother's palm. Mother lowered her head, looking at the tiny talisman. For a very long time, suddenly, as if a switch had been flicked, the long-suppressed pain, like a breached dam, erupted. Mother clutched the peace talisman, sobbing uncontrollably. Those cries were no longer pure despair and pain, but also mixed with longing and the comfort of salvation. I floated beside Mother, watching her trembling shoulders. "Mother, cry. After you cry, you'll be all right." From that day on, Mother slowly began to accept treatment, cooperating with the doctors, trying to recover her health. Mother still spoke very little, but the lifelessness was gone from her eyes. On the day she was discharged, Uncle Achet helped Mother with all the procedures. Before leaving, Mother had her first words for Uncle Achet in over half a month. "Achet, can you take me to visit Nam?" Her voice was hoarse, dry, but incredibly firm. Uncle Achet's eyes reddened, he nodded firmly. "Yes." They didn't go to the pond that had buried my body. Uncle Achet drove Mother to a mountain near the town. It was very quiet here, with picturesque scenery, offering views of the small town at the foot of the mountain and distant fields. Beneath the largest pine tree stood a small stone monument. There was no picture on the monument because they couldn't find any photos of me. It simply bore one line of text, "Tomb of beloved daughter Nam Nam." This was a cenotaph that Uncle Achet had erected for me. Inside, there were no ashes, only a copy of the exercise book filled with crimes and hope, along with the peace talisman given by the woman from the Wang family. Mother, dressed in black, slowly walked to the monument. She reached out her fingers, gently caressing the two characters, Nam, just as she used to caress my cheek. Mother knelt, her voice as soft as a breeze. "Mother has come to visit you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, allowing you to suffer so much. In the past, I always told you to be obedient, to endure so we could survive. I was wrong, incredibly wrong. You are braver and smarter than Mother. You are Mother's pride." Mother didn't cry, she just knelt there silently. Facing the cold stone monument, recounting her belated apologies and endless longing. Sunlight filtered through the pine branches, scattering dappled light on Mother and on my small monument. I floated beside them, listening silently. Mother raised her head, staring at the monument, her eyes still sorrowful but with an unprecedented resolve. "Nam Nam, rest assured, Mother will live well, living out your share of life too. Mother will help you see this world, see the wicked receive their retribution, see people like us have a chance at a new life." Having said that, she bowed deeply, 3 times towards the monument. When she stood up, a faint but incredibly genuine smile appeared on her face for the first time. Seeing Mother's smile, I felt the last thread of attachment binding my soul quietly fade away. A warm breeze blew past, my body became lighter and lighter, more and more transparent. I turned my head to take one last look at Mother and Uncle Achet standing in the sunlight. They leaned against each other like a painting. "It's all good now. Mother, Uncle Achet, goodbye. Nam Nam has to go to a very distant place now. There will surely be candy to eat, new clothes to wear, and a proper home."